Let's now uncomment the last 5 sections for this exercise. So they are all related to a final method that we have to define, which is the equals method for the birthday book. Okay, so first of all, you look at that for section 31. So this one is basically like a continuation from the previous section where we were trying to override the birthday of some existing name E. Okay, this one will just work because this one we already tested in the previous section that the new extension to add entry actually worked. And now we're just calling other methods from the even previous section. They also proved to be working. Okay, the 31 we shouldn't worry about it. I'll just have to test. So now for 32 until the last one, which is 35. In these 4 sections, we are trying to give you some requirements about the equals method for birthday book. Okay, let's see what we're doing here. Okay, so far up to 31, we only talk about one particular birthday book, which is called BB. And now over here, we're trying to introduce a new book called BB2. Okay, so in section 32, we are creating a new empty birthday book, BB2. And we want to make sure that, remember for BB, okay, let's just go back to the expected output there, and let's review very quickly. The last shape of the birthday book BB is it got 3 entries, B, D, and E. Okay, you can certainly see the from the expected output from section 30. Okay, so now we got 3 entries in BB, so B, D, and E. So now let's see for section 32, we created a new empty book called BB2. If you compare BB2, which is empty, with another non-empty book, BB, which has 3 entries, of course they are not equal. Okay, that's why for 32, you will see that it's actually false. Okay, that makes sense. Let me still highlight this one for BB. So now let's say we go to 33. So now we add 2 entries over there. So now both BB2 and BB, they're both not empty. However, you can see that the number of entries for BB is 3. On the other hand, the number of entries for BB2, since we're adding 2 non-existing names into the birthday book, so that should be 2. So we're comparing one birthday book with size 3, which is BB, and with another birthday book of size 2, which is BB2. Of course, they are not equal. That's why you see that for line number for section 13 is actually simply false. So up to now, we know that if you're trying to compare 2 birthday books whose number of entries are simply not the same, of course they cannot be equal. Okay, that's something we have to bear in mind when we code up the equals method for birthday book. Okay, now for 34 over here, we are adding another non-existing entry into BB2. So now remember, we got B, D, and we got E. And let's look at BD04 very quickly. If you go to open declaration over there, BD04 is April 14th. Okay, let's go back there. So now basically you will see that now after adding the 3rd entry to BB2, so now we got B, D, and E. If you just see their birthdays, June 16, April 14th, and also that BD4, which is also April 14th, they are exactly equal to the BD and E. Okay, so now this is how we define the equality when the number of entries for 2 birthday books are the same. We just consider, which I'll draw you a diagram in just a moment. Let me just describe that in English first. So this, when the numbers of entries of 2 birthday books are the same, we simply compare the entries array position by position. Okay, we compare index 0 for both arrays and make sure they are the same entry. We consider index 1 with both entries and then to see if they're the same, and we do that until the last entry. Okay, so now in this case you can see BB and BB2, they are of exactly the same entries and also in the order. So now the equals, to make it simple, we say the order of the entries is also important. Okay, of course in general the order may not matter, but that will be a little bit too advanced for this exercise here. But I think having order being would just make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, BD and E. Okay, lastly, so now we got 35. Okay, by the way, that's why for 34 you should have true. Okay, For 35, so now we are trying to do the following. We say that we just add another entry to BB2. Remember, BB and BB2 used to be equal because they got the same number of entries, and the entries are in the same order, and the entries are also the same. But now we're adding a fourth entry there, which means for BB2 is going to be something like B, D, E, and F. Right? You can see now the numbers of entry of the two books are again different. Of course, it's going to return false for the equals. Okay, so that's actually the simple requirements in as a tester. Of course, they are not really complete, but they should give you sufficiently enough ideas. Okay, if you also look at the instruction in the PDF, you also see that I believe we also mentioned that how you should compare two birthday book to see if they're equal. Let me just go back there very quickly. Over there, you can see that in the instruction there. Okay. So now, not too sure if I said that. If I didn't, that should be indicated just by the sections I just described. Okay, maybe not. I think it will just indicate it from the comments I put in the tester. Okay, again. Let me just show you again. If you go to the section 31 to 35, you should really try to read everything in the tester to make sure you got the idea. So non-empty book of the same sizes where entries at the corresponding positions are equal. Okay, that's exactly the requirements. Okay, it was not really written in the main text. And also non-empty books of different sizes are not equal. Right? Also non-empty and empty books are not equal. So 1, 2, and 3. So these are the three requirements for you to encode into Java in order to implement the equals method. Okay. So now let's just stay ready for the expected output over here. But now let's code up. Before we code up the equals method in Java, let's again do some conceptual illustration quickly. Okay, just in case you still haven't got the intuition. It's really important to get the intuition clarified before we try to code up. Okay. So now, let's say we got two birthday book. Again, we got BB. And for illustration, I'm just going to say, for example, let's say this. So, birthday book, I'll say BB. Okay, it has the number of entries over here, and then we have entries. Let's say in this case, we got 4 entries there, and the entries is simply going to be an array of size 10. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Up to 9 over here. And then over here we got 4 different entries. Okay. And 4 different entries over here. And then, of course, the NOE is going to point to here, right? It's actually equal to 4. Okay, and then we have entry here, entry here, entry here, entry here. Let's not worry about the contents. Remember, we already so far defined, we have overridden the equals method for both the entry class and also the birthday class. So all we got to do is, whenever we are picking a particular entry from 2 books, so we just have to call the equals method to actually compare the entries. That's already done for us. You don't have to repeat the comparison between entries. You don't have to. Okay, but I just want to draw you the idea about how you can compare birthday book based on their entries. Okay, over here, let's say we got another one. Let's say BB2. Over here, you can see the object structure is going to be the same because they are instantiated from the same class, BB. Let's say over here, let's make some trivial case where they are simply not equal. As the number of entries is 3, and then we have entries here. And then it's going to point to an array of size 10. 0, 1, 2, and then 3. I'll just make some room for future expansion. Okay, and now we got 1, 2, and 3. And they all point to some entry object over here, entry object here, entry object here. Okay, so now it's 3, so NOE should be pointing to here. Okay, so now let's do number 1. What does it really mean when I say BB dot equals and then BB2. Okay, this comparison should be very easy. We don't even have to go to the array comparison because you will simply see that, let me use a consistent color here, so you can see the NOE for BB is 4. The NOE for BB2 is 3. So that means it will simply just return false, because bb.noe is not equal to bb2.noe. They're simply not equal. So this case is trivial. You don't even have to go through a loop to compare the entries one by one. You don't have to. You don't even need to bother. Okay. So now what about case number 2? So now let's say for case number 2, let's say we somehow add another entry to bb2. Over here, there's a 4th entry, which means now this will be 4 over here, and now NOE will be pointing to 4. So now, what's going to be the case for BB dot equals BB2? Okay, in this case, we know that, I'm going to use a different color here. So now you can see that now NOE is 4. NOE for BB2 is also 4. So that means we have a chance to have some equal birthday books. However, we have to, before we know for sure, we have to compare. So basically, this is the idea. Since now we know that both birthday books have the same number of entries, so we can run a loop like this. We can say for integer I0, I less than, so either you can say bb.entries or bb2.entries, doesn't matter because they are equal. And then I plus plus. Okay, now what should we do over here, right? So now let's say we are in the context of, so this is the context objects, bb, and this is the argument objects, right? So now we can say, what we can do is something like this. We can write some expression here. So this is not really complete. I'll make it complete when we go to Eclipse. What you can do is you can say this dot entries at position I, and then dot equals, and then we're gonna pass other, which is also another birthday book, dot entries at position I. Okay, that's the kind of expression we can write. So now let's be clear about, you can see over here, BB is this, and BB2 is other. Okay, that's the argument object, which means this can be just BB, and this can be BB2. Okay, now let's make some example here. When I is simply just 0 over here. So what does that mean? That means bb.entries at position 0, which refer to this particular slot, that's equal to bb2.entries at position 0 is this. So we are really comparing these two objects. So this and this. Okay, so this is when I is equal to 0. I is equal to 0. And if you go to the next iteration, I will be incremented from 0 to 1. So now we got bb.entries at position 1. Is that equal to bb2.entries at position 1? So now we're comparing position by position, as you can see, these two objects over here, right? And then go on, we can also compare, again, these two over here, and also we can compare these two, right? So we only compare entries at the same position from the two entries array, from the two birthday books. Hopefully the idea is clear. Okay, so now we just have to code up this logic into Java and see how we can do it. Okay, once you understand the abstract idea, translating it to Java shouldn't be a big issue. Okay. Okay, let's go to birthday book, and now we'll code up the logic. So now we're going to go, let's say, go after the toString method here. So now we're gonna code the equals method. Okay, so now remember, before we actually do the cast of obj into some other, so we had to do some standard checks. So we're gonna say if this equals object, which means we are just comparing two. We're just comparing the birthday book with itself. In that case, it would just be true. That one's trivial. And also, The next two cases will give us trivially false result. We can say either obj equals null, or the two things are simply of different type. This dot get class, which will certainly give me birthday book. But if I am trying to compare a birthday book with an entry, or if I'm trying to compare a birthday book with a birthday, or if I'm trying to compare a birthday book with a bank account, in that case, they should not be equal, of course. Okay, it's not equal to obj dot get class. In this case, return false. Okay, after these three cases, we can now go to the most interesting case. So now we can cast. So we can say birthday book, and we can say other, okay, and then we can say do a cast. Okay, and then we can say obj here. Okay, now how should we do? So now I will show you one possible solution there. So now let's be a little bit more logical. Boolean, I would say is equal over here. First of all, we have to compare the number of entries of both birthday book. You can say this dot get number of entries, which will return NOE equals other dot get number of entries. Let's get this Boolean value sorted out first. And remember, in some cases, let's say if you're comparing BB with size 3 with BB2 with size 2, in that case, of course, they are trivially false, right? So which means is equal will just be assigned to false initially. So now we're going to run a loop. Integer I is assigned to 0. I less than, you can either say this dot NOE or you can say this dot get number of entries. Doesn't matter. I'll just say NOE for now. And then I plus plus. And now I'm going to add a conjunction over here. I'll explain to you just in a moment. I'm going to say I'm going to keep iterating as long as I'm now considering some valid index for getting into the entries. And also, so far, the entries I have compared are actually equal. Think about this. If this Boolean value here is initialized to be false, how can that be? That means this, let's say bb.get number of entries equals other than get number of entries is simply false. It could be because maybe one is of size 3, the other one is of size 2. In that case, it will simply assign false to its equal. And what's the consequence of that? The consequence will be when you say something and false, that means you will not even enter the loop for the very first time. And this is as expected because we don't even bother to compare their entries array. Okay, if this is okay, then we can just keep updating is equal. Is equal is assigned to be. So now let me write the most concise way possible. You can say this dot entries array at position I. So that's it. That's an entry. But now be careful. If you accidentally just say other. So this one doesn't make sense. Again, Eclipse is very smart, very useful. If you move this your mouse over, it tells you that unlikely argument type for equals. Birthday book seems to be unrelated to entry. What does that mean? You can see this refers to the current class, which is birthday book, right? And when you say this dot entries, that refers to its attribute array, which is an entry array over here, right? So now if you say this dot entries at a particular position I, that's going to give you an entry object. And you're calling the equals method on the entry objects. You're comparing an entry with other, which is a birthday book. That doesn't make sense. How can you compare a single entry with a birthday book, which contains a collection of entries? You're not really doing the right comparison. Okay, just be careful. This one is certainly, it will compile, but it's not right. Okay, so now we just have to change this. You can say other dot entries at position I. That's what you should do. Okay, so now that means as soon as we find out the very first entry in both entries array that is not equal, and then we're going to set is equal to be false, and then is equal will be false, which will cause this state condition to be false, and then we exit from the loop. Okay, one more thing to say. So I'll say here we reuse the equals method defined in the entry class. Okay, hopefully you can see that. This equals method refers to the equals method that we defined in the previous section. You can see in the entry class, we do have overridden the equals method over there. Okay, make sure you know why it is calling that version there. Okay, again, this means birthday book. This .entry means an entry array. This .entry is at a particular position and give you an entry object. That's why it's calling the equals method from the entry class. Okay, eventually you can just say return is equal. Okay, so now everything compiles. So now we can run the tester and then to see if we got the expected result. And then if we do, we can go ahead and translate the console interactions into JUnit tests, and then we're done. Okay, let's go back to our birthday book tester over here. Okay, let's now run it and compare the output. Okay, so now 31 to 35. Let's compare very quickly. For 31 here, we should get number of entries should be 2 and then D and E. 31, that should be 2 and D and E. Good. And then the result we should get false, false, true, false. False, false, true, false. Good. So now everything just worked. Okay. So now let's now convert. Last step is very important. We have to convert our console applications into the JUnit test for automation. Okay, copy that, and then let's go to our test over here. And then I'm going to have the final one. And then have test over here, public void test 31 to 35. Let's put it here. Okay, let's be careful here. So now we have to set up things properly. Okay, what I will do is I'm going to do, again, I got this over here. Okay, so now I have A, B, C, and remove AC, so I got only B left. And then I have to add 2 more things into it. I got D and E, and also I add existing key, E over here. Okay, just make sure things are properly set up. Also, I got BD04, which I can find it over here. Okay, let's copy that. So PD04 is over here. Okay, so you can see that this is the setup before we can do the actual test. It's actually really important for you to understand what's going on here. Okay, now for 31, what we're going to do is we can now say string array to remind. And now over here, let's see what 31 should be. Okay, 31 should be number of reminders should be 2, and then D and then E. Okay, we got 2 persons to remind. Okay, so this is what we will do. Assert equals. Okay, let me copy that. So now we got 2 reminders to send out. So we're gonna say 2 over here, and you can see that the first reminder, which means index 0 at that return array, and also index 1 at that return array for the second reminder. Okay, so now we can say assert equals, and then assert equals. And the first one D, the second one E. The first one will be D, and the second one will be E. Okay, so now we're done with 31. Let's now do 32. For 32 is easy because we simply just initialize an empty birthday book called BB2. And then we simply expect that non-empty and empty books are not equal. So we should assert false. Okay. Assert false, and then BB dot equals BB2. That should be false. Okay. And then we're going to do 33. And then we're adding 2 more entries into BB2, right? So now it has 2 entries. However, BB has 3 entries. So you can see non-empty books of different sizes are not equal. So we also, again, expect assert false. and bb.equals bb2. Okay, now for 34 over here, what we have is we got non-empty books. They are of the same sizes and their corresponding entries are actually equal. Okay, so in this case we should assert true. Okay, if you make the method called bb.equals bb2, that should be true. Okay, finally we can say 35 over here, and then we're gonna add one more entry to bb2. So now bb2 has the sizes being let's just double check. So now, okay, so now bb2 has a size 4, but bb has size 3. So they are again unequal sizes. So I should expect to say assert false. Okay, that's what I have. Okay, so we got 31 to 35 converted into JUnit test. Let's now run our test cases. Okay, if you run it, you will see a green bar. So far we have got an accumulated 22 test cases, and out of them pass. So this will conclude this exercise over here. I want to draw your attention again. So remember, you were given this particular tester over here to start with, and then we got 35 sections to work on. The way I did it was incremental. So I simply comment out everything, so everything just compile. And then I uncomment one section or just a few sections, a small number of sections at a time. And then try to get one thing to work at a time. So you cannot just work on everything and just get it to work. It's not really recommended. It's better to do incrementally. Okay, and fix things when necessary. And every time when I get a particular section to work, I always go back there and then to convert them into a JUnit test method to really to automate. Let me tell you again what's the rationale of doing this conversion. It's really worth your time doing it, because if you simply only keep this BirthdayBook tester in your on your side, so that means every time if you make a change, let's say this, we have done our initial development here. Let's say tomorrow, I say now do a small change to the equals method for BirthdayBook or to the birthday class. In that case, what you gotta do is you gotta rerun this tester over here. If you rerun it, you will see that you got so many console output to check with your eyes. You want to make sure every one of them is still correct. And how do you make sure? You gotta see by your eyes to see, oh, this is really 111, and this is really still January, December, etc. Okay, that's really tedious, and that's absolutely not recommended. That's really error prone. So what we really recommend is you go to create a JUnit test, and over there you simply just code each requirement, each expected scenario as a test method. So you only have to define the test method once and for all. Okay, once you define that, you don't have to touch them anymore. So we got a collection of test cases, which we call a test suite. Every time you make any changes to that, you can simply just rerun all your test cases. They will simply check for you automatically. For example, let's say if I go to birthday here, let's say somehow I want to change my requirements. I want to say maybe for 2 birthday to be equal, that means their month is equal. Or you can say, or maybe the day is equal, right? So now if you try that, what you can feel free to try. I wouldn't try on that machine. You can feel free to change, modify your method a little bit somewhere in the 3 classes. If you modify that, is the modification legitimate? The way to justify that is simply go to the BirthdayBook test and rerun all the tests. If you still get a green bar, that means the change you introduced was okay as far as the current test suite is concerned. However, if your introduced change caused the test report to give you a red bar, that means you should really think about whether you got to change the test or you have to change your new implementation. Okay. Finally, I want to show you one more thing in the debugger, and then we are done. Okay. Now I want you to put a breakpoint over here for your test cases. Okay, so now let's say for the last test method we wrote, we're gonna put a breakpoint over here. I want to show you is really the version of the equals method in BirthdayBook that's being called. Okay, click on the bug button here. If you click on that, so now we pause over here. If you say step into over here, you will see that we step into BirthdayBook class, And now we're really in the equals method over here. You can see this is really the case where we are trying to compare the entries array. Okay, so now we are not really entering the equals method for the object class. Okay, in the case where we did not override the equals method in the BirthdayBook class, of course we'll enter the equals method in the object class. But in this case, since we have overridden it, so it's showing this version correctly. Okay, so now that's about it. So I would suggest you go over this whole tutorial series very carefully. Hopefully you will learn a lot.